Hi everybody, my name is Paul von Schoenberg, and I saw this video this morning about some linguistic debate about universal grammar, and then I guess it relates to Chomsky and all this kind of stuff. Anyways, I don't know if it's my theory or where it came from, but I was thinking about this type of stuff on my own, and I never really learned the universal grammar theory, but if you look at peoples around the world and where they came from, generally speaking, they come from different environments, right? Like some people could be characterizable as forest peoples, like if you think maybe the Germanic tribes, forest peoples. Some people might be valley peoples, or like people that grew up in a river valley, which is a very common habitat in the Paleolithic period. So they would have grown up in a valley where you could have seen, intruders coming over the hillsides or the passes through the mountains. You could have seen the game, you would have had women looking out with their children. You would have had animals that they could have hunted. You would have had berries and stuff like that they would have foraged. Anyways, all that to say, you can sort of imagine their habitat, right? Or you call it habitat from a biology perspective, but their environment. And then if you think of desert peoples, maybe not always desert peoples, but at some point in their history, maybe desert peoples that would have been very tenaciously survivalistic, but also probably descended from agrarian peoples earlier than maybe some of the more nomadic or semi-nomadic peoples, right? And in any case, they would have been, tendency towards scribes and intellectual traditions, perhaps. Maybe, I don't know, maybe these are wrong too. Maybe there's no basis in fact, but the whole idea is just to basically a set of elucidating concepts about the environment and different environments. And then you had marsh peoples, certainly, people that would have been pushed into lesser habitat, less desirable spaces, marshes, wetlands, also estuary, estuaries are river edges, ocean edges. You think of some of the Indonesian peoples, indigenous people just live on stilts in the water and skin dive for fish and other marine, life for subsistence. You might think of plains. Plains. It was like the steppe. Semi-nomadic people where the environment is relatively sparse and not very productive, but they have to they move around and they can't sort of rely on one place to make their long-term existence. So they have to move around. So anyways, all that to say, you think of all these environments. The Serengeti, chaparral people. So chaparral, you have like sparse vegetation where light is not limiting from a biological perspective. So trees can grow anywhere, but they don't grow everywhere. Usually limited by water, not light. So the forest is not dense. Might be partially flooded at times, like the Chaco Boreal in southern cone of South America. Or like the chaparral, or like parts of California, where everything can grow, but there's a limitation of water, right? So, and then you think about these people, and they grow up there, and they make their languages through the sounds that they can make, which is partially biological, likely, based on the shapes of their mouths and their tongues and their brain size, and no comment there about racism, by the way, just a comment about different individuals and how they might have influenced their people. Anyways, so all that to say, they come to make sounds, okay, and they brush up against other peoples. And every name of any tribe ever, it just means the people, by and large, right? It means the people. So they would call themselves the people, and the other people were, and they would come to be known by their name, by what other people called them sometimes, right? Anyways, all that to say, you brush up against other people, and the sounds they would make would be different, right? They'd be different, and so innately foreign. And then so in our survival instinct, fight, flight, freeze, or adapt, or whatever you want to call it, the innately alert, spot the difference in our environment, react to it and make a response to it, develop an attitude towards it, and develop a coping mechanism, whether it's hunting, fighting, fleeing, whatever. These types of things become popular, and they become dynamic between different peoples. Some people are more peaceable, some people are more savage. Nomadic peoples often had a raiding culture, so they didn't rely a lot on their environment. So When times were lean, like savage people would get more, would get their spoils from other tribes when they would raid them and steal their food, stuffs, and women. And you think of the samurai tradition in Japan, how some people relied on being thieves, essentially, and they had to stick together to defend themselves. So an innately human quality, a very beautiful human quality of protection and military defense in a way, right? So, and then, anyway, so you go in your environment and you develop these sounds, and other people have sounds and they're foreign, and these sounds adapt into the language, they adapt into script. So here we go with the script idea, the symbols. The symbols would be inherently reflective of the type of nature and environment they live in. So trees, plains, forests, marshes. And my theory, I don't know if it's mine, but I don't know, there's something I've consolidated. Who cares? Maybe somebody came up with it. Ideas are never your own anyways, right? But anyways, the idea then that the symbols themselves would be indicative of everything in the environment as part of your language, or as meaning, right? Or value and meaning, meaningful value. And then you describe it with the symbols that are sort of reflective of your environment, right? And then the sounds that are pejorative or like associated with people that have different sort of qualities than you, and some of them negative, maybe some of them positive, either or both, or a mixture, or some kind of wisdom, either way, would be attributed to a sign or a symbol. Anyways, all that together, everything together, all put together, would be like your script and your language and your oral traditions and the meanings that you get out of it. And then everything in the script and the word and the written down would be basically holistically complete, except with the exception of God. And so I do believe in God, but you don't necessarily have to listen to this theory. You can just say there's always something missing in words, and that goes without saying, right? You can make a poem of a million words. It's the most beautiful poem ever, and then you see the real thing, or you go see the stars or the sun, and you say there's something you can't put into words, right? So that's the idea behind it. There's something in the sublime, the divine, the sublime, the divine, or the divinity, or beauty, or majesty, or anyways, all these types of words, right? So then, or terms, and so, yeah. So then the script, the passage, the linguistics. They are an innately evolutionary force, which is what I'm saying. It's a biological. It's not a programmed. It's not a programmed reality that you come into the world with. It's an innately human capacity of over-engineered brain. An over-engineered brain of a big head. Of being cared for by protective, beautiful mothers and strong fathers who protect children that don't come into their own, not even a gazelle or a wildebeest, who is a knock-kneed when it's born, but within 1 day has to learn to run and can outrun, maybe even a hyena, right? Or a bear cub, or a little fox that within a couple of weeks will start to play and start to learn how to hunt, right? So humans have to survive because they get protection. So the brain is bigger, and then we have a longer time to develop, and then so our brain capacity has to be applied to something. So we've over-engineered all these abilities to adapt to language, create language, and complexify it and describe our environment. But at the end of it, all the labels, all the symbols, all the meaning are always missing something. It's majesty. And so you can adapt this, and it segues into a whole theory about emotions, grief, trauma, the function of trauma, the function of spirituality in moments like death, somebody dies, your child dies, rituals, and maybe we'll talk about that next time. Anyways, that's my theory of environmental grammar.